Dr. Brian Dixon, thank you for joining the Future Maker podcast.
Thank you for having me, EJ. It's a pleasure to be here.
Can you start with your just experience, how you got here, and just your background?
Yeah, so I had a really amazing mom. So my parents were divorced when I was 5. I'm from East Texas. Go Lufkin Panthers. Go Pack. Parents divorced when I was 5. I had a really amazing mom who had her own intricacies, and my dad was still involved, and he had his own intricacies. And so, but growing up, I always kind of felt like that outcast because I was the quote unquote smart black kid who acts white. So yeah, which that's a whole other thing that
Yeah.
we can get into. And so, but I felt very kind of alone. And so I've always wanted to learn more about myself. So I went to college at Baylor, got my psychology degree, went to medical school, really loved psychiatry and pediatrics, and decided to specialize in pediatric psychiatry, child psychiatry. And so, and then fast forward, I started my own practice. I'm working with kids, learning more about myself every day. And then it's a pleasure to teach other people about themselves. So I have the best job in the world.
I love looking at your Substack, and just you and I have talked for the last decade. I love the joke you tell parents. Can you kind of share it with the audience?
Yeah, so as a child psychiatrist, one of the fun things that I get to ask, parents will ask me, "Oh, do you have kids?" And my joke is absolutely not, because they are expensive and time consuming. And then the parents laugh, and then I laugh, and everybody laughs, and it's a good time.
Yeah, I wanted to start there because I think it's always something that I always want to preface is you and I are about to talk about kids and their emotions and how they navigate this world, and so much uncertainty that they're about to live through in the future. And both of us do not have kids.
Isn't that
So
funny?
yeah, I wonder, like, people ask me, why do I care so much about kids when I don't have them? So I would love to know what makes you so interested or invest so much of your professional career in this space.
Yeah, so I believe children are our future, so that's
Yeah.
the overarching goal. But kids don't know a lot. They are these universes of possibility, and the idea that we can swoop in and help give them a little guidance and a little support, and that they will go out and create amazing stuff, that appeals to me a lot. So yeah, it. I don't mind, and actually, I feel like it's my calling to help teach and support kids.
Well, what is the one thing that you probably get once you tell people what you do? It's like, well, what is the thing I actually know as a parent? Like, what's the one thing or the thing on a billboard that you would like all parents to know? What is the big thing you've seen with your decades of experience?
Yeah, so the biggest thing is you're gonna mess it up. So don't feel bad. Like, a lot of parents come in and they feel bad about everything, and I remind parents that there is no manual for kids. Just do the best you can. Yes, even with the grandest intentions, there's still going to be some hiccups, and that's okay. And that's where I get the pleasure of guiding parents and coaching parents so that they don't feel so bad, because kids take their cues from us, which I'm sure we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, and I love that I asked you about the kid and you actually focused on the parent. So, do you feel like that anxiety has increased over time now that there's more millennials becoming parents? The abundance of information and data and Apple Watches and the control that they may have in all other parts of their lives. Have you seen that? And what's kind of the biggest things that they're trying to control?
Yeah, so one of the firm beliefs that I have, one of the philosophies that I hold, is that idea that kids are egocentric. Ego means a sense of oneself, centric means in the center. I'm not saying kids are self centered, I'm saying that they can only see their perspective. And because of that, it's a lot of parents kind of forget that um, that perspective, and so and vice versa. When parents are anxious and worried, kids will take on their parents' anxiety and worry, because that's how kids are kind of designed and wired. Now, as you get older, you become less egocentric. And I always tell parents, kids are not selfish. Selfishness is when you can kind of see where the shortcuts are, you choose to cheat and that sort of thing. And I don't think kids can see the entire picture. They can only see their perspective. So, yeah, I do see more anxiety because I honestly believe that over the last 15, 20 years of me practicing, I've seen teenagers become adults, and they're not making the shift to to altruism and finding their own path, and so that stuff will absolutely trickle down to their kids, and so you'll create this like perpetual cycle of anxiety and worry if you're not careful.
Yeah. I wonder, do you see a pattern? Does it become algorithmic where you can say, "Oh, this is classic blank type of kid or family. I know that I'm going to spend the next 3 weeks doing probably this digging." Does it become pretty consistent, or you still find yourself fascinated of how people respond and what you see in your office?
Yeah, I'm fascinated, but I mean, most of it is pretty straightforward
Yeah.
because we are more connected than ever, right? So we're on devices, we're on social media, and because of that, adults ramp themselves up. We're constantly worried about what's next. Are we doing enough? Do we have enough likes and follows? So all of those worries in adults trickle down to kids. If you're a teacher and you're not minding yourself, it's going to trickle down to your students. If you're a parent, it's going to trickle down to your kids. If you're that neighbor that wants to have the best yard. If you're not careful, it's going to trickle down to the kids playing in the street, right? So they take their cues from us. We really need to tackle our stuff before it becomes their stuff.
And when you hear student, what's kind of the average age do you start really seeing a kid come to your office? And I guess what's kind of the concerns scales based on maybe being closer to the earlier ages
Hmm.
as maybe some of your older students or
Yeah.
kids that you work with?
Yeah, so my youngest is 3,
Wow.
and they're off the chain. Mostly like hyperactivity, kind of ADHD
Yeah.
kind of stuff. Anxiety wise, like excessive worry is what I'm kind of describing anxiety. I'm trying not to give the clinical label just yet, but like excessive worry, probably 6 or 7. I think when you get into that kindergarten, so kindergarten is kind of like go play and live your best life. First grade is then, hey, we actually need you to sit down and not be all over the place, and let's make sure everything is good as possible. And I think that's when I see more of the anxiety start to manifest. And then it can take any type of presentation. So some kids are like, I don't want to go to school. Some kids are very acting outery, so they scream and yell and throw fits at school or at home. There's lots of different ways that anxiety shows up. And the key is for me is trying to tease that stuff apart. Is it expected? Is it unexpected? Is it ADHD? Is it anxiety? Is it bullying? There's so many other things that can look like anxiety and excessive worry. And so that's where I always tell parents, don't try to therapize your own kid. Don't try to treat your own kid because it ain't going to work. Go talk to someone who's trained to do that stuff. And that's why I have the best job in the world.
Yeah. And what has maybe like social influencers and the rise of it almost ADHD and ADD and OCD and
Mm-hmm.
all the rises of subscription of prescriptions
Yep.
and maybe self-diagnosis is what is your advice there
Yeah.
for parents?
Yeah, so for a lot of parents, you believe what you see what you believe. That's just kind of how we're wired as human beings. And so if you're getting worried and overwhelmed, change what you're seeing. Get off social media, go for a walk, get outside. Cull your friend group because if you're surrounded by a whole bunch of people who are snapping and Instagram, I don't know what all the terms are. I'm old man. You're going to be more likely to do those things and then stress yourself out. So yeah, so one of the first things is kind of take an inventory of what you're doing in a day because I can almost guarantee you are overstimulating yourself.
What is still currently unfigure outable in your world that you still are thinking about?
Well, so one thing that it won't be figured out anytime soon, and I'm glad, which is there is no test for any of the stuff that I do, right?
Yeah.
There's no blood test for anxiety. There's no blood test for ADHD. A lot of it is contextual and societal. There is some genetic and biological factors, but we get to figure out how to help people feel better just by talking. And I think a lot of people actually push against that. They're like, oh my God, I'm so stressed out. I want to go to the doctor. Can you run this genetic test and see what medicines work? No, it doesn't work that way. Genetic tests actually drive me crazy
Mm.
because people are like, well, if I just do this test, you can tell me what medicine to be on. And I'm like, no, these medicines tell you how you metabolize them. They don't tell you if they work or not. So there's lots of gray areas in psychiatry. And I love it. I lean into that discomfort. I think you grow as a person when you are uncomfortable.
Yeah. How much do you you feel like where we are in society with the rise of mental health, the rise of abundance of information on our phones, um, how much do you think everything that we're actually feeling and responding to is the systems and the environments that we exist on today? If those were different, would we be different?
Yeah, that is the $1 million question. I'm gonna cop out and say it's 50-50.
Yeah, okay.
So I'm gonna and then I'm gonna reframe it a little bit. I think it's half micro, meaning internal, half macro. So what we do as a society. So one of the reasons why I love my shirt so much, and I tell people this all the time, you are exceptional. You're an exceptional being. You are stardust and light and energy, and is awesome. But you're also not the exception. You still have to get up and go to work and pay your taxes. You have to stop at red lights. You're not that special in the grand scheme of things when it comes to kind of the social macro. So I think we're unbalanced when it comes to that stuff. A lot of folks are walking around saying, and I think again because of social media, a lot of folks are thinking what I have to say everybody needs to hear, and I'm like, actually, not really. I mean, you're great. You're exceptional. But I don't have to listen to you if you don't know what you're talking about, and vice versa. There are social things that we really need to do as a society to support the individual that we're not doing. I always laugh at the statistic that 40%, I think, of food in this country, in the U.S., is just thrown away
Wow.
and discarded. Right? Yet we have folks who are overweight and unhealthy. And I'm like, y'all, there's some mismatch between the macro and the micro, right? So yeah, who's to blame? As all my Christian friends like to say, all have sinned and fallen short. So we're
Mm.
all to blame. So let's just lean into the discomfort and figure our stuff out.
Where do you think kids operate in naturally? Uh, do they see themselves as exceptional, or do they do better at living in the macro?
Yeah, so I would say we need to create a situation where all kids think they're exceptional. Don't put boundaries on them. That's one of the reasons why I hate Fortnite and video games
Hmm.
and phones, which I know we're going to talk about in a second, is because they're very limiting. You're playing
Yeah.
by somebody's rules, right? So when they get on Fortnite, I don't know who developed Fortnite, but
Yeah.
I'm going to assume that it's probably a dude who it's always a dude, right? A dude who decides how high to jump
Yeah.
and the dimensions of the boxes and whoever
Yep.
Steve is, right? I don't know
Yep.
Fortnite and Minecraft and all this, and that stuff is actually limiting, right?
Hmm.
And that's one of the reasons why I don't like video games. So yes, we should let and encourage kids to live in that exceptional realm. We don't need to beat it out of them and get them ready to pay bills just yet. So.
Yeah. Do you have any kind of practical advice that you would share with parents? I mean, I think a lot of parents during the workday, Monday through Friday, like you said, they got work. They have the things that they have to do just to survive. So the time with kids feels finite.
Mhm.
So what's the best advice you can tell to parents who don't have a lot of time but want to make the most impact on their students with the time that they do have?
Yeah, put your phone down and then
Hmm.
put their phone down. Kids do not need phones.
Hmm.
And I know, I want to say I saw something on social media recently where you were like, hey, kids should have phones. So, EJ, should kids have phones? Because I'm going to
Well,
say no.
yeah. So let me first. I mean, you're the doctor here, so
Hmm.
let's first talk about why you started with putting the phones down.
Hmm.
What does that do?
Hmm.
And then, if the case is we shouldn't have phones, when do you see phones being a part of people's lives?
Yeah.
So just give me your kind of takes on that.
Yeah, so I'm going to oversimplify. Your mileage may vary. So for young kids, so birth to 12, they don't need a phone.
Yeah.
They are very concrete beings. They believe what you tell them and show them. And so when parents put their phones down and just stay in the moment with that kiddo playing games or doing whatever, I think that's the best use of your time. If you want to give a phone 13, 14 around puberty ish and then put a lot of restrictions, I'm sort of okay with that because I understand that that's how kids communicate.
Yeah.
But you're going to get the most traction out of your relationship when you're looking them in the eye and you're in their presence. And I think phones disrupt that. Phones, tablets, electronics disrupt that. So, yeah, I'm perfectly fine if no 12-year-old and younger gets a phone.
Yeah. I hear what you're saying there. what is your take on like screen time as a whole? Right, there's the iPad. You know, they might use that to help with homework. Um, you know, watch tutorial videos, TVs. What is it? Just phones for you? Or is it screens as a whole?
So screens as a whole, and I'm going to pull back and say anything that gives you a feedback loop, like immediate feedback. So if you take a tablet, iPad, or any type of tablet, and you touch it and you feel a buzz, or you touch it and something moves, it creates a loop in
Mm-hmm.
that kid's brain. And it creates an expectation. That kid is then going to think every time I tap this, something's going to happen. We are behavioral creatures, right? So then what starts to happen when they walk up to the TV and go, well, I want to watch something, and they tap it? They go, it's not working. What's the next thing that's going to happen? What's the next thing that's
They're
going to
gonna
happen?
scream.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
This isn't working, right? And you're like, oh, it's not a touchscreen. You
yeah.
need to relax. Well, we're inadvertently reinforcing certain behaviors, and if you don't want those behaviors to happen, you as the parent, as the adult, have to be mindful of the feedback loops that you're creating. So yeah, that's another reason why I just don't like devices. Now, I do appreciate when parents say, "Hey, they're doing Duolingo, they're learning a
Mm,
different language. It's a nice kind of
yeah.
a moderate babysitter while I cook dinner." I can respect that. And again, it's a judgment free zone. I say do what you need to do, but keep in mind the larger picture is that you're creating behaviors for your kids, and they're going to come to expect a certain thing. On the flip side, with construction paper and glue, they will never ever have that issue. They'll sit there, they'll cut, they'll paste, they'll do things. There's no feedback loops. It's all creativity, and they can be just as engrossed and immersed in a tactile experience as being on a tablet or phone or TV. So
Yeah. Have you read The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt?
So I have very strong opinions
Please
about.
share it.
I haven't
I
read
have
that.
strong opinions as well.
Okay, I haven't read that book in particular, but I have very strong opinions about anybody that writes kind of sweeping books. It's one of the
Yeah,
reasons
yeah,
why I haven't written a book yet, because the minute that I do, it becomes obsolete and could actually do more damage.
yeah,
So yeah, I've heard of the Anxious
yeah,
Child or whatever it's
yeah.
called, but I have not read it.
Okay,
So
yeah, um,
or Anxious Generation, I guess.
yeah. No, I mean, so in the book, he talks about how kids shouldn't have a phone until they're 14,
Hmm.
and so I think that's a common thing that I think all people can agree on. I think where I have a battle sitting on the outside, I see myself as more of a futurist. A someone who sees where I don't try to change the world by changing where it's going. I try to change the future so that where the world is going, it actually flourishes that way.
Mhm.
I feel like the responsibility of humans is to evolve, and we're always evolving. And now we're living in a world where these teenagers spend more time of their waking day on their devices than they do not on their devices.
Mhm.
And I think for me, I agree with you have to teach kids how to be humans in physical world, but the digital world is now also real. And what I mean there is, I've officiated a couple weddings, and my favorite person at a wedding is the guy who plays video games with the groom, and they never met. But then the person flies to their wedding to see them get married in person. So I think pre-phone based generation, something that misses and something I don't believe Dr. Hyatt goes enough into is that he's a nativist, and I think he's and I think that the research is nativist in the sense of what Homo sapiens and who we need in the physical world to operate. But we have to understand that the phone is a door to a future ecosystem that multi realities will exist upon. And video games and finding friends on video games and FaceTime and Auntie are a part of our lives. And we have to have phone education in school, the same way we did driver's ed. And the history is very simple. If you look at driver's ed, if you look at driving, 1908 roughly, the Model T got scaled.
Mhm.
And then we didn't have driver's ed until 1934. And so we went through a 20-year period of crashing, irresponsible behavior. And I think that's, if you look at this century, 2008 is when Facebook was created. And still today, we have no phone education. I think we allowed that to go to capitalists who then turned it into consumerism.
Mhm.
And so kids today don't, I think we need more of a digital YMCA because we are going to live more online. And that is even if we cut the time in half from 8 hours to 4 hours, that's still a lot of time for a kid to be connected to devices. So to simply say, give them construction paper, which I believe when you're under 13, we have to eventually teach them and give them a permit for the information highway.
Yeah.
That is the future we're living into.
Well, so EJ, I would push back that friendships and relationships are not supposed to be efficient. And if there's one thing that technology does, it makes things more efficient.
Yeah.
Right? Same thing with the Model T and the horse
Yeah.
buggy analogy. It makes travel more efficient.
Yeah.
And I think computers make organization and task management and productivity more efficient, but you can't make friendships more efficient. I don't think that's I mean,
Well,
I guess you could. But,
well, I think you are like because now if you
but,
you grew up in
are they
small town
quality?
Texas, yeah, I think if you're small town Texas like you are in
Mhm.
Lufkin,
Yeah.
right, and I lived in small town Texas as well.
Hmm.
You only got the options of the 400 kids you're kind of around.
True.
If you identify a person you're playing a video game with that have similar interests, you can have that relationship and what the efficiency comes from is you don't have to like drive to go see each other and all those things. And I do believe, let's be clear, I'm not saying this is how friendships would be. It's a version of friendship that is also real. My best friend, we have not lived in physical location since 7th grade. And he's still my best friend. We talk once a week. Most of our life existed on the digital world. And at the kicker here, it's not one or the other, in my opinion. I think we live in existence where both is only going to become more together. So I think, I think that's kind of the angle there. But I don't think the whole thing needs to be about phones today. But I do think that's something that is on the big discussion for parents and when and what to do. And I do agree with what you said. And phones does not need to be a part of a kid's life until they're maybe 13, 14 years old. I think what I really want to do is just, I sometimes think, and this is, again, I'm not a trained or educated doctor in this field, but I'm always glad for our friendship and to be able to have conversations like this. And I think it's like, for me, it's like, I know we have a rise of mental health. I know we have a rise of challenges, but I think our challenges are a lot different than our grandparents were. And are we dealing with mental health crisis because we don't have to deal with a physical health crisis that, we have more shelter, we have more food. Like you said, we're throwing it away. So now we're a bunch of people who have more of the lower levels of Maslow hierarchy of needs figured out. And so now we're kind of sitting in what's the meaning of life. And so therefore, in a way, some of the most intelligent people I know are also the people with the most anxiety.
Well, and I think you're onto something. So I'm going to concede a little bit.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I do, when you mentioned digital YMCA, so I
Yeah.
like that framework only because I think part analog, part digital. Whoever can figure that out,
Yeah.
because having an experience where you can go somewhere, see someone, and then maybe have it augmented or through some type of software, I think is the future. I just think right now our kids are too far into the digital and not enough analog. Like
100%.
when I tell parents, oftentimes, because they're 16-year-olds are in their house and they're talking back and not doing chores, and I tell parents all the time, I use my black country experience, which is what my mama would say, which is get out of my house. Go
Yeah.
play, right? And I tell parents to do that with their teenagers, and the parents are like, "Well, they don't know what to do
Yeah.
if I tell them to get out of my house or go play." And to me, that is a very worrisome statement, right? Or worse, and I have seen this more times than I can count, EJ, is when I tell parents, you know what? Take away their phone. Or I will tell the kiddo in my office, yeah, I told mom and dad, take away your phone. And they say, I'm going to kill myself if you take away my phone. It happens, dude. I'm going to put something out there and backed by my experience, not necessarily by the numbers, but the number of ER evaluations caused and prompted by taking away a phone or video games it's higher than you think. The number of kids who state suicidal statements because of that. So to me, that's a sign that we're too far over into the digital, because I don't remember this kind of thing happening when I was in school, and I was way more analog than digital.
Yeah.
I am 44, so I'm on the cusp. Um, and so yeah, so I think we're too far, and I would say let's pull it back. Maybe not back to pioneer days, little house on the prairie, but we're over our skis, as some people say.
Yeah, and that's another thing I think Dr. Hyatt kind of talks about is right more of a play-based generation. They don't know how to play. They're a phone-based generation. And again, I 100% when I look at his recommendations in the book, no phone until you're 14, social media when you're 16, those kind of things all make sense. I think it's half. He gave us half the battle of the game plan to fix the things you're just talking about. Is
Mhm.
how do we cope with being okay in the physical world and existing in it without being attached to our digital world. I think that next battle is, teaching. I think phone education should be scaled across high schools,
Mhm.
and we should be giving the kids a permit. And that permit is, like you said, some restriction apps that they can then start playing with on 14, 15. Then at 16, okay, here's your keys to your car, your device. We trust you on it because now we kind of intentionally got you there. Um, but I think also, the country or the people who are going to be ready for the world beyond that is in how do you equip them to understand how to use and live their phone. Um, and it's just fascinating. I don't know how you feel about it. It's just more and more of the world is becoming and maybe the pandemic. What did you see with that? Like, did the pandemic change a lot of how people are looking at it?
Yeah.
And how did that impact kids?
So yeah, so it's really interesting. So pandemic laid bare our shortcomings as a society, because yeah, if you didn't have going into the pandemic, you really didn't have was the
Yeah,
pandemic hit. Strangely enough, my kiddos and my families who do have actually did great, and it was
yeah,
the creepiest thing because we expected a lot of kids to have difficulty, and again, some of them did. If you did not have access to reliable internet, if you did not have a safe school environment, those kids struggled. But quite a few of the other kids, especially my kiddos who were on the spectrum, actually did beautifully because they were either being taught by their parents or in these like pods or just hanging out with some curriculum online. So they actually did well. It was a strange thing. I didn't see the anxiety kick up like I thought it was going to. Um, way as a segue, way more kiddos with anxiety, um, in my opinion, have anxiety related just to their parental arrangement. So be that divorce, be that mom and dad not getting along, be that one of the parents not being there, um, be that single parenthood, because yes, it feels like phones and internet and entertainment for those kids, and with divorce, that's 50% of society. Those kids get a lot more than kind of the two parent. Somebody's around. I don't see as much anxiety necessarily in those kids. I'm not
hmm
saying that one way is better than the other. I'm just saying I see way more of it in a kiddo with a circumstance.
yeah.
So
What is your advice on how to divorce properly?
yeah.
Or, it sounds like, when we talk, you mentioned that this is a common part of the conversation with the kid is how a divorce impacted them and traumatized them.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And I always tell parents there's no good way of divorcing.
Yeah, yeah.
And again, if you're thinking of a divorce, by all means, go talk to somebody.
hmm
This is more edutainment than anything
Yeah,
else.
yeah.
I'm not giving legal advice. But the key is to be very concrete. And ideally for both parents to sit down and do it together, because what tends to happen is one person does leads it off, and then parents, because we're not managing our own stuff, we start to then bring the kid in as our therapist or as our sounding board. And when you do that, that creates more anxiety and inconsistency. And the more inconsistent you are with kids, the worse they're going to do. So, yeah, so a lot of, and again, some of it, I wish you could sit in session with me because the number of kids that I've heard, if they're at mom's house and I'm working with mom because mom brings them in, we're being super consistent and things get okay. They go to dad's house. Dad goes, they call it the fun time dad phenomena, right?
hmm
Oh, I only have you for the weekend so you can go play video games and get on your phone and I'm going to buy you a phone and da 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 da. Kid gets back to mom's on Monday and all hell is breaking loose. And mom is trying to take the phone, and the kid's saying, "Well, my dad bought this phone," and there's inconsistency between the parents, and then they're anxious and depressed and all the things. So again, that's not a kid issue. That's a big people issue. That's an us issue.
Yeah.
And until we manage our stuff, our kids are going to continue to suffer.
I find it fascinating that you brought the phone back to this.
Mhm.
Is it real? How much is phone culture a part of the conversation?
Yeah, I don't. Most people, I think of phone in an innocuous way. Same thing with video games. Phones, video games, electronics, TV, all of them release dopamine when you watch them. They feel good. It's like eating candy, right? We like that. It's like brain candy. The thing is, I think adults our age, so maybe 30 plus, 35 plus, it used to be our TVs were not interactive. Like when I was little, the TV was what it was. We had one channel, ABC News. I watched Peter Jennings every day at 6 o'clock
Hmm.
with World News Tonight. There was no interaction. I had to take what he said as the word because that was my only thing. So when he says this happens, I believe him and I move on. Nowadays, TV and everything is so interactive.
Yeah.
It's bound to create an issue, and I think a lot of parents are underestimating what information their kids are getting and then how interactive it is.
Yeah, I think this is where I believe like a lot of times when I talk about this is these generations, like the iPhone is 18 years old. That means it would
Oh
be
my God.
graduating from high school right now, about to go to college. It is this generation's device.
Yeah.
Um, and this generation has three lives where you and I grew up with two, right? Our personal life and our school life.
Hmm.
You know, who we were at school was different than who we were at home. And now that third life is their phone life. And because you're right, it's no longer a TV that you watch, and it's becoming more of a piece of land and environment that you walk on and interact on. And Balaji Srinivasan, an author in the future, as he kind of talks about it in his book, The Network State, is that we are now living in a time when, you know, there was nation states, but now you have these network states. So imagine being on a boat and you're coming to a new land, but instead of landing in America, you're landing at the country called Facebook, the country called TikTok, the country called Snapchat and Google, and kids are landing there, and there's no structure or
Yep.
understanding how to build community there, and that's to me the opportunity that we have to see, um, that kids are going to live on. And I think that's the part that I find. There was also other data. I'm going to close that part. There's parts around that I find is that we have to teach our kids how to be journeymen on their devices and be thoughtful of when an algorithm is trying to take advantage of you, when you are seen by bullying, how do you handle that? What is real? What is real is going to be the biggest thing that our kids have to decide, right? When an AI chatbot can create a video vlog, how do I assess is that real? If the news is real, everything that they're going to be navigating, is this person I'm talking to actually a person? They say they're my age. Are they actually my age? Oh, they say if I spend $5, I'll get $50. So it's all these things are like, I think what is real, and I think I see that with our country and with our society. We're going from right the monetary to crypto to general intelligence, artificial intelligence, real world to virtual reality, and administration leadership pushing on rules that we thought were real rules. So what is real is, I think, one of the biggest things we have to figure out. And
Well,
how do you see we navigate that?
yeah, so human beings. So I'm gonna say this. Let's see if you get it. Kids playing cards on freeway get smushed. Do you remember that acronym?
Mm-mm.
Okay, kids playing cards on freeway get smushed. So it's kingdom, phylum, genus, something, 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 something. So it's the that scientific nomenclature thing, right? Um, Human beings do not do well with disorganization. We are not agents of chaos. I don't care what you see on TV and with, yeah, we like order and we like structure. And right now, all the AI and all the things you just listed is very unstructured, and that's going to be our downfall. We have to have structure as human
Yeah.
beings in order to function. And so, ideally, parents are the people who bring structure first. Hey, I need you to brush your teeth and then go to bed. Hey, in school, you keep your hands to yourself. Blah blah blah. To your point, I think it is a great idea to do like a phone education course. I never thought about it that way because we do that with driving. But if we deny our basic need for structure, we are doomed.
Yeah, and I think the structure piece is the always time when you're talking about a moment in history, right? And I think we're in a moment of history
Mm-hmm.
where we have to build the structure on this digital land that our kids and us are existing on more and more. We've given that up to capitalism and startups to build a monetization function. But right now, truly a phone and our social media and how we communicate online is like the physical world before plumbing. Like we just have no infrastructure. We have no structure. And so kids are literally crapping on themselves all over the place. And it's just like they're of
Literally.
course it's like that. And I think that's like what I also know it's natural for humans is we don't like change
Mm-hmm.
and we don't like unknown. But what humans are the best at is creating global rules where even if you've never seen each other, you can respect each other on, we know how to walk into a restaurant. We know how to greet people. We start building those habits. And I think those are the habits that we have to start articulating in this digital world that we're going to continue to exist more on.
Mm, therein lies another hiccup, which is there will be people who claim that that is thwarting their First Amendment rights or their rights as an entrepreneur to run their closed community how they want, to moderate how they want. I don't know what the answer is. What I do know is that kids are too cognitively immature to know how to manage that type of environment. Moderation, I think, is key for
Yeah.
those types of environments that include kids. And right now, there is no moderation. In fact, I agree with you. You mentioned something earlier about the algorithms. They are written to take advantage of your neurobiology. They
Yeah.
push out dopamine, they give you an immediate response. Is one of the reasons why one of the particular apps I cannot stand because there's no break between advertising and posts. It's like one continuous
Yeah.
feed of whatever the stuff is. And I think that's overwhelming to the human brain, especially the immature human brain that is kids and teenagers. Drives me
Yeah.
nuts.
Yeah.
I think it's really important the vehicle that you use to teach and to educate. So you can use an electronic vehicle to teach and to educate. I just think that you run the risk of creating problems. So, for example, um, uh, uh, yes, if someone is doing a dance on one of the social media apps and they're teaching you about the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo
Mhm.
while they do it, it's going to be catchy. You're going to remember it better. Um, and you'll probably remember that better than like a didactic from a paper textbook. Yes, that will happen. But if there's an ad for lollipops right after the video, whereas in the textbook you don't have an ad, and then the kid comes home and goes, "Mom, I want that lollipop." Do you see where that's the problem? So, I I'm not against all education um, uh, being provided in electronic format. I just think it's unfair if we don't give them the tools to ignore the lollipop after the ad because there's always a lollipop after a video. That's
Yeah.
just how it works.
I just feel like though it's always, but that's how it was when you were watching TV and the commercials came
Yeah, but
or
you
the
could get up and
billboard.
walk away
Yeah,
from the
yeah, yeah,
commercial. You can't walk away from the thing because, and that's the other thing that these apps do that drives me nuts, is you can't find it again, right?
yeah, yeah,
After you scroll past something or you clicked
yeah,
something,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
like
yeah,
gone. And then you
yeah,
go, oh
yeah,
my God, that was
yeah,
kind of funny. Let me go
yeah, yeah.
find it. And then it,
Like a scarcity about it, almost in a way.
yeah. And all of these, so I'm sure you know, because I've seen, they hire psychologists,
Yep.
psychiatrists, and clinicians for these apps to then use our neurobiology
Yeah.
against us. And that's us as big people. Little
Yeah.
people don't stand a
Yeah.
chance.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So,
And that's why I think, as we talk, it's we definitely got to teach the kids how to live in the physical world and control their sensations, have their confidence,
Mhm.
be able to advocate for themselves. Because once they learn how to do it in the physical world and then we give them access to the digital world, then they're more likely to survive against the algorithm. Then they're more likely to handle these things. And so I do believe that's a full point there. But what I would love to close on though is around I think parents have this constant pressure of like figuring out how to maybe not just set the rules, but then even just listen to who their kid is,
Mhm.
the bias that they might have, the person they want to see their kid to become. Uh, how can you help the tug and pull? Because I think ultimately it's a tug and pull of not just structure, but then also building some type of chance for them to have freedom and agency uh, to figure out who they are and you supporting them.
Yeah, I got in trouble for this on LinkedIn. So, but I'm going to say it anyway. I tell all of my parents you have four jobs. Your four jobs are to feed your kid, clothe your kid, shelter your kid, send your kid to school. It is not your job to entertain your children. It is not your job to explain yourself. And so people on LinkedIn blew up. They were like, oh my God, are you jettisoning the moral education of children to someone else? And I'm like, well, if that's how you read it, you need to go to therapy because that's not what I intended nor what I said. All parents are terrible therapists for their own kids. Period. End of sentence. Because parents are too close to their kids are too close to their parents. And so, in moments of distress, when the parent jumps in and says, "Hey, Bobby, take a deep breath. It's okay." If Bobby's really feeling himself, he's not going to listen to that because of the nature of the relationship. That's just how kids are with their own parents. Now, Bobby will listen to some other person, like a teacher. When the teacher, Ms. Jones, says, Bobby, you know better, take a deep breath. Bobby will take a deep breath and we move on, right? So I'm going to encourage every parent listening to this to remember you are doing a great job, right? Do not beat yourself up. You're not supposed to be all and the end all be all for your children. Your kids are actively working around everything that you have put in front of them. Every structure that you put, they're going to push against it. Do not take offense. Do not take it personally. That's what they're supposed to do, and then they will grow out of it. Well, most of them will grow out of it, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I hope every parent leaving my presence feels is that they're doing their jobs. There is hope for the future, and their kid is not broken.
Cool. Well, one of the questions we like to ask as we close out is what scares you about the future?
If we forsake kickball for Instagram, that worries me. If we forsake hanging out on the front porch because we are on Fortnite, that worries me. So yeah, we have got to find a way to spend more time together, be awkward, live through the awkwardness, learn through the awkwardness. If we take it all digital, I am chilled to my core.
Yeah. And why is that?
Yeah, because we'll forget how to actually communicate with each other. There's so much body language, nonverbal communication, so much data that we get just from sitting in the same space. There's energies through the ether that we miss by being apart over screens
Yeah.
and TV and phones and stuff.
Yeah. Where I feel like this like I totally hear what you're saying, but I also feel that the I'm 35 years old and I already feel out of touch with how kids exist. And I feel like that distance of time used to give you a couple more decades until you felt that way. And I remember just being a kid on AOL Messenger and having my AIM, Rican Boppy 1989, username and talking to my friends, my wife at the time, and all my mom understood was, man, this kid is on the computer all the time. She didn't understand ripping music from LimeWire and making a disc for my wife to custom. These are my playlists that I make for you because it makes me think about you. And so I don't fully agree on how we are talking about technology. I just think we're so far from really seeing how kids use it today and how much it's just more and more coming at a faster rate. And yes, do I think parents should jump on horses and ride around a field and have that moment with their kids? Yes. But then you come back to reality. And that reality is more of us on our screens, hearing Google tell you to turn left off the highway. We are interacting and our existence is becoming more digitized. And how we are civilizing is changing in the 21st century right in front of our eyes. And yeah, maybe the way we interacted on the porch will one be in the history books, the way tribes connected to each other or Polynesians in Hawaii chanted and shared their ways. Could our way of civilizing simply be changing right in front of our faces?
I'm not saying that you don't get an emotional response from a thumbs up or a like or answering a notification on your phone. What I am saying is that when you give somebody dap and a bro hug, it releases a different level of connection and
Yeah.
endorphins, right? So I'm not saying you can't live a life all virtual. It's just not going to be a deep, rich life. You get that from touching and feeling and hearing and smelling other human beings,
Yeah, and that's and
right?
that's and yeah, and that's where I 100% see what you just said there. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and that is, and one of my biggest things I always say about this topic is I don't care how AI works, how you can buy a robot
Mm-hmm.
friend, you can do all the things online. Having a real connection with another human being who genuinely, authentically cares about you, wants to know about you with no motive. They just like you for who you are. And when they're present with you. I don't care what happens in the future. That will always be more valuable than Bitcoin.
Yes.
And there's not enough people. If you and I counted on our hands how many people we can be genuine, authentic, and present,
Mm-hmm.
and people uh, want to be us around us and check in on us just because they think we're interesting and they care.
Mm-hmm.
And I would argue like it's less than five for most people.
Yeah, I
And
would
the
agree.
internet has created loneliness. The internet has created that isolation
Correct.
because it's easier
Correct.
to get the dopamine and the
Correct.
candy and the
100%.
DoorDash
Correct.
from there. So I totally hear what you're saying on
Well,
that piece.
and so name a parent, any parent that lets their kid eat ice cream before dinner.
Yeah,
No parent does that.
yeah,
So we, as a society of creators and managers of software, we need to keep that in mind. We need to put some barriers to the ice cream.
yeah.
Yeah, it is a good thing.
And I think that's the kicker. Where the back and forth is around. It's not just ice cream, on there. It's the people are going to listen to this podcast
Mm-hmm.
on their phone while folding laundry. And I would like to say you and I are broccoli and vegetables right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying is that the truest possibility for our humanity is how do you take that rootedness of community and bring that rootedness into kids' digital lives? How can they feel like they're on the porch? How can they feel loved, safe, seen, and heard? How can they meet peers? Today, a kid can't go on the internet that's been around for 30 years now and know they're going to go meet another teenager online. Like, I'm just thinking that how can we take these feelings that we have in the physical world and provide some type of shape of that online? And that's what I think when I talk about the digital YMCA is like what made the youth center, which was, or a YMCA so big in my life is like, right? Like my parents worked. I would go to school. I would get on the bus. I'd go to the youth center. The youth center was an open space, a safe space. There was usually like a mentor or a near peer mentor who, a youth coordinator who kind of say, "Hey, EJ, how you doing?" But then I would go play basketball. I would go down the slide. I would play in the computer lab. I would play arts and crafts. And I got to kind of decide what to do in this space. But it was a space where parents respected, the school respected as a kid's space. And the kids can like interact with each other. You're from different economic backgrounds. And that YMCA played such a pivotal role in our physical space. And we are not funding those today in our physical space as we should. But I think the digital infrastructure that our kids are going to need is that same feeling, but online.
I'm with you. I agree with everything you said. My hiccup is always we're going to overdo it because
Yeah.
that's what humans do. So have you ever heard the statement, if it's free, give me three?
Mm-mm.
Yeah. So if it doesn't take any effort to get a great reward, then you're going to ask for more and more and more. And meaningful relationships take a ton of work. They take a ton of effort and attention, money and energy. That's what a meaningful relationship is. If you shortcut that because you can jump on your phone and just talk to the one person who likes this one particular anime that you like, and then you shun everything else around you because it's too hard, it's going to make for a very, very lonely existence. So we're reinforcing a lonely existence by not making kids and ourselves go out, talk to your neighbor, go out, meet the person, talk to that person in the elevator, even though you may not want to, and you're like, oh my God, I'm so tired. Do it anyway, because you never know where your next friend is going to come from. You can't curate everything, which is what you can do online, which is what it makes it so dangerous.
Yeah, no, the kind of terminology I kind of talk around this is fast. You got fast food has become more automated, where McDonald's is making a burger with no human
Yep.
ingenuity touching it. You have fast clothing with Shein, be able to create clothes without people interacting with the garments, and that's same happening with fast interactions. Waymo is a driverless car that now has outdriven people in San Francisco than Lyft, and there's not a single driver there. So, you're ordering now on screens. The even when an Amazon guy does drop off something to your box, they have their AirPods in,
Yep.
listening to something or talking to a friend. So these fast connections are also going autonomous, and that is scary for us. On now, we have to almost force ourselves to find small interactions with other people, because again, those are kind of being taken from us. Well, Dr. Dixon, thank you for coming on to the Future Maker podcast. We hope to have you in the future as you continue to discover and look through this work.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So, if you're listening to this episode, we would love to hear your feedback and ideas as a parent, educator, or leader who's thinking about the future of the world and how we can make sure it's better for our children. Make sure to subscribe and follow on all your streaming devices that you see and get content like ours. Thank you.